Does an ideal indicator exist that captures all the peaks and troughs? Yes. In 2021, at the market peak, most believed in new highs, but the metric we are about to discuss correctly warned of the impending crash. And today, the danger signals have appeared again. This on-chain indicator, in inexperienced hands, can be poison for your deposit, but in experienced hands, it's a bitter but life-saving pill that brings back sober consciousness during periods when markets are gripped by mania, which hinders making profitable decisions. Today, we will uncover the secrets of the MVRV Oscillator. Watch this video to the end, and you will learn how to use it correctly, becoming more successful than 95% of market participants. MVRV is an abbreviation for market value to realized value ratio, which is equal to the ratio of market capitalization to realized capitalization. And to understand MVRV, let's explore these two terms in more detail. Bitcoin's market capitalization is the current market value of all Bitcoins, and it is calculated by multiplying the current market price of one Bitcoin by the total number of Bitcoins in circulation. This metric can be called a fantasy, because if you simply multiply all Bitcoins in circulation by the last price, it doesn't mean that market participants actually invested that much in Bitcoin. To understand this better, imagine that you created a meme coin totaling 1 million tokens, and as a result of trading on the exchange, someone decided to buy one token from you for $1. And since the last price of your token is $1 and there are a million in circulation, it turns out the market capitalization of your token will be $1 million. And you can even start telling your friends that you are now a dollar millionaire. But this will only be your fantasy. In reality, you earned $1, and this, in turn, is the realized value or realized capitalization. So, Bitcoin's realized capitalization is a metric that represents the value of each Bitcoin at the price when it was last moved. It's logical to assume that if a coin was sent somewhere, it most likely changed hands, meaning it was bought. And based on this assumption, by tracking the last movement of each Bitcoin on the blockchain, we can find out at what price it was actually bought. And then, by adding up the value of each coin at the moment of its last movement, we can get total value of all the coins that was actually paid for them. This will be the realized capitalization. Thus, realized capitalization aims to determine the actual amount of money that entered the market to purchase a given cryptocurrency, and market capitalization simply demonstrates some amorphous fantasy value simply by multiplying the last price by the number of coins. So MVRV is the ratio of these two capitalizations, and it shows us how many times the fantasy is greater than reality. For reinforcement and clarity, let's imagine that only 3 Bitcoins exist and the current price is $100,000. So the market capitalization of Bitcoin in our example will be $300,000. And these 3 Bitcoins are owned by only 3 people: you, your friend Peter, and your acquaintance Maria. You as an insightful investor, of course, purchased your Bitcoin at a price of $10,000 and have been hodling it in your cold wallet ever since. Maria and Peter bought their 2 Bitcoins at a price of $70,000 and have also kept their Bitcoins without movement since then. Thus, the realized capitalization of these 3 Bitcoins will be $150,000. Your 10,000 plus Maria's 70,000 and Peter's 70,000. The ratio of market capitalization to realized capitalization will equal to. This is $300,000 divided by $150,000. This means that on average, our group of 3 people is sitting on 100% paper profit. At this very moment, tension begins to build in the market. Because the higher the paper profit, or as it is also called, unrealized profit, the greater the desire to realize it. That is, to sell your assets and lock in profits. It is generally accepted that having 200 to 300% paper profit is a significant incentive to sell, at which point the average person will most likely take their chips off the table. This is the essence of MVRV. To see how much profit the average Bitcoin holder is currently in, on average. But if any terms seemed unfamiliar to you from my explanation, I left a glossary in my X account, so follow the QR code or the link in the description below. What is happening with Bitcoin right now? It recently hit a new high and has now corrected a little. The perma bulls, as always, say that you need to buy this dip. But MVRV shows a disturbing picture. A phenomenon where the price increases, updating the highs, but this growth is not confirmed by MVRV, manifests in so-called bearish divergences. These are one of the most reliable early trend reversal signals that this oscillator can provide. This is how we understand that Bitcoin hodlers have started its active distribution. To understand this better, let's return to our example, where you bought Bitcoin at $10,000 and now you have 10 times in unrealized profit. This is much more than the average 2 to 3 times at which people usually start selling. So well done for holding on until such a profit. But you are not a robot after all, and you must be tired over the last 10 months of just looking at this money, since the price hasn't really changed during this time. But your friends Maria and Peter have much less profit than you, and they need a life change. They want to be like you or even better. So they are focused primarily on going to the moon. They want to believe in the dream that Bitcoin will reach at least $200,000. And here another player enters our game. Let's call him Nick. You sell your Bitcoin to Nick for $120,000 and thus significantly increase the realized capitalization of Bitcoin. Now it will be Nick's $120,000 plus $70,000 each from Peter and Maria, totaling $260,000. But the price of Bitcoin has also increased. Now it is $120,000. So the market capitalization of Bitcoin is now $360,000. But what happens to MVRV? It seems it cracked and fell sharply, becoming no longer 2, but about 1.38. This behavior of the MVRV oscillator revealed that you locked in your profit, while the demand for Bitcoin was not great enough to raise the price so high that MVRV itself would not fall. And thus MVRV exposed you as an insightful and cunning person who profited from Peter, Maria, and especially Nick. You passed the baton and left the game. Now it is not your headache. But what is really happening now? Now, MVRV is demonstrating the third wave of decline after the formation of the second lower peak, and this diverges from the picture that has formed in the price. This is called a bearish divergence, a double one in fact. This signal, as you might guess, is more serious than a regular bearish divergence. As we now know, this means that investors are taking profits while absorbing all this supply and pushing the price up just as briskly as before is no longer possible. It is clearly visible that since last winter we have entered the distribution phase, the final phase of the bull market. Pay attention, this is the exact signal we saw in 2021, and it is this signal in an even stronger form, a double bearish divergence, that we see on the charts right now. This is what you should pay attention to when working with MVRV primarily, rather than waiting for this indicator to reach the same heights as in the past, as most people who look at this oscillator do. This most likely will not happen, because over time Bitcoin's volatility subsides, and MVRV is not an oscillator with a fixed range, like the RSI for example. so cannot be interpreted so dryly. Of course, if MVRV reached the values of past peaks today, it would be an additional reversal signal. But most likely, you will not get such a signal. You will simply miss the top of the market and experience the whole spectrum of unforgettable sensations from sitting through a bear market. Now MVRV is still above 2, which, as we know, is an incentive to sell. In addition, in March 2024, it reached 2.77. According to statistics, Bitcoin has only spent 20% of its time in the zone about 2.4 and only about 5% of the time below 0.8. Given the fading volatility, it is more likely that in the future Bitcoin will spend less time in the zone about 2.4. In this growth cycle, Bitcoin has already been in the zone about 2.4. By itself, if we forget about the bearish divergences, this level does not say to sell Bitcoin, but it definitely says that this is not the time to buy it. And this cannot be said about the zone below 0.8, which shows consistent stability from cycle to cycle, and apparently it will continue its role as a level where one should start accumulating Bitcoin. That is, there is only about 5% of the time when Bitcoin should be bought, and about 20% of the time when it can be gradually distributed. Let's do a little more magic with this oscillator and plot MVRV on a logarithmic scale. Here we can draw several descending trend lines, which indicate that very fading volatility of Bitcoin. And these act as a nearby barrier, so that the proverbial Peters, Nicks, and Marias in our reality are given the opportunity to earn their multiplies profits, just as you did. After all, trends are trends because they demonstrate stability. Of course, MVRV should not be taken as a panacea. It is just one of the metrics that, when using a comprehensive approach to market assessment, can give a hint as to when it is better to buy and when to sell. I hope by this point you have already subscribed to the channel, because a new video will be released soon, where I will talk about a more advanced version, MVRV Z-score. And as usual, I wish you all massive profits. See you soon.